So, we are recording. Wyatt, how are you?
Great. How's it going?
I am alive. I haven't talked to you in quite some time.
I know, years probably.
Where are you today?
I live in Atlanta. I live just outside of Atlanta, but still in the perimeter, so I can still say I live in Atlanta.
It counts.
It counts. But yeah, we bought a house last year in kind of the eastern-ish portion of Atlanta, and I work at Emory University.
Very nice. Well, I was going to
Yeah.
ask you to introduce yourself. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Yeah, so we obviously know each other from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. Shout out 49ers.
I like how you put the. I remember that was a very
I
important.
Yeah, when people don't have the on their resume, I'll call it out. But yeah, so we know each other through Alpha Kappa Psi, and since then gotten bitten by the higher education bug, and I've worked at Vanderbilt and Emory in finance, and now I just live in Atlanta with my husband Brandon, who is also in the fraternity, and our 9-month-old son Vincent.
Yeah, you're a mom now.
Isn't that crazy?
How does that feel?
So weird. It doesn't they just let you leave the hospital with
Like another human
like they
being.
don't ask any questions, they just let you leave.
There's
Yeah, like
no
a whole
test,
person
no
who will die if you
nothing.
do nothing. So.
It's a little
Nothing.
scary.
So yeah, it's pretty crazy, but yeah, it's scary. But he's honestly such an easy baby. Like he really does make it easy. He makes me scared to have a second because you just can't get lucky twice. So yeah.
No, actually, my older brother just had a baby, actually last night.
Uncle
So
Pablo.
yeah, I'm officially an uncle, and I don't know. It's just weird that another human being is just there.
It's crazy. And your whole like existence changes. Like you can't even go to the bathroom without like figuring out who's making sure this thing doesn't die. And yeah, I always say like parenthood for the first few years is making sure they don't die when they're doing everything they can to do that. And then after that, you just limit what they have to work out in therapy in their 20s.
Oh God,
That's all of parenthood. That's it.
there's no thank you or anything in
I
there.
mean, maybe like when they become parents, they realize how tough it is. I don't want to say how much it sucks, but how tough it is. Oh, thank you. But like, that's not why you do it. You just like, you know what? Just be a good person and do good things for other people, and I'll be fine. You don't have to do good things for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the most selfless thing you can do is to be a good parent, right?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so
And no, I assume that you're happy and all is good in that world.
Yeah, I am. I'm really happy. Everything's great. I am working on the next, which this is the topic we're going to talk about today, the next race to cure sarcoma here in Atlanta. It's on June 11th. So it's a 5K that I've been planning. I plan the Nashville and the Atlanta, and I've been involved since 2017. So that's been keeping me busy here recently. And yeah, so that's just
So is the one in Atlanta one date and then the one in Nashville a different date?
Yeah, the Atlanta one is in the spring and the Nashville one is in the fall. I don't know if you want me to jump right in to how I got involved in that, but I started with
Yeah, go for it.
I started with the Nashville one and then I moved to Atlanta and got involved in that one. But yeah, so basically my involvement with sarcoma started when my little brother, Beckett, was diagnosed in 2016 with stage 4B, which is as bad as it gets, Ewing sarcoma. It was started as a tumor on his hip and it spread to his lungs, spine, and lymph nodes before we even found it, before we even knew anything was happening. And he was 8 at the time he was diagnosed. So basically, he spent 7 weeks in the hospital at that initial diagnosis. And then in September 2016, we had a PET scan with really good improvement. His lungs looked a lot better. The initial scan of his lungs looked like basically buckshot had been shot into his lungs, like it was speckled all over.
Jesus.
Yeah, and then the next one, his lungs were pretty much clear, and there was still some activity in the main tumors. Then by December, his PET scan showed no active tumors, but then his MRI showed a new one on his spine, which meant it was mutating, which is not great. That puts you in a whole new category of cancer when it mutates. So they stopped his current treatment and started a new one. By late January, early February, they learned that the new chemo wasn't working. There really weren't any other options, and they decided he was terminal in February 2017. And so the decision was made to have quality over quantity. We could have done some chemo that would have dragged it out, but that would have come with a lot of costs for him. So they actually had to draw up a do not resuscitate for a 9-year-old boy. And he passed away in March 2017 after 9 months with Ewing sarcoma. So that just lit a fire in me, and that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable for kids to die of things. So that got me involved with the Sarcoma Foundation and things like that, in addition to just learning a lot about life through something as crazy as that.
So let me take it back to the beginning and ask, what, and maybe this is helpful for listeners, is what made you and your family realize that there was maybe something wrong with Beckett?
Sure. Yeah. So Beckett he was in Boy Scouts. And so he had kind of a Boy Scout event one day in the summer. And he had been complaining about his leg. It was actually his knee he was complaining about. And if you looked at it, his knee was fine. They thought maybe, it's just growing pains. And until it was like, okay, he's at this Boy Scout event. All the boys are playing. He just wanted to sit and do nothing, which was really unlike him. He, like me, had ADHD, so there was no keeping him sitting.
Right.
And so that day it was kind of all right, like something's up. So they took him to the pediatrician. They looked at his knee and it looked fine. And he's like, hold on, let me look at something. And he looked at his hip, and there was what looked like a half of an orange sized tumor sticking off of his hip. And he didn't notice it, which is crazy. He was too old for my parents to be giving him baths and stuff, so they didn't see it. And they were like, Becca, how did you not see this? And he's like, I don't know. I just wasn't paying attention. He didn't see it. And so, it was the fact that he just wasn't playing. That something that simple. It was like, all right, this isn't just normal growing pains.
It's funny because I remember when I was growing up, I was probably around 10 years old, maybe younger, and I was also complaining about certain little pains here and there, right? And that's exactly what the doctor said. Just growing pains. Do you think that there could have been anything else?
That pediatrician, no, there was no other, he had no other symptoms at the beginning other than pain in his knee. And the doctor just on a hunch looked at his hip, and we would have had no idea to look at his hip. It was pressing. There's like a nerve that runs from your hip down the outside of your thigh and kind of wraps around your knee. And it was just pushing on that nerve. So it was just the pediatrician that was like, let me look at his hip. And there it was. So
Wow.
It was crazy. And he spent 40 days in the hospital. He went home for like a night or two after they discovered it, and they took him to an ER and they ran a bunch of tests. So while the tests were running, he went home, and then they checked him in, and he was in the hospital for 44 days at that initial diagnosis.
So is there what was the exact diagnosis? Because I've read up a little bit on sarcoma, but that it's a generalized type of cancer, right?
It is, yeah. So he was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, which often starts on the bone. There's also other osteosarcomas that are a little different. Ewing's is slightly more rare. Sarcomas are only accounted for in about 1% of adult cancers, but they account for about 12 to 15% of childhood cancers. They can start anywhere. Connective tissue, there's liposarcoma, which can start in fat. His was Ewing's, which is a little more rare. And the stages kind of mean, how far along are we? And so stage 4B means it has spread, and it has spread to multiple different areas, and those areas are far from the original site. So his started on his hip, but sarcomas often will go to your lungs next. But his also went to his lower spine, and it was in his lymph nodes. And once it's in your lymph nodes, it's everywhere. So yeah, like kind of the sarcoma statistics there, but also childhood cancer is the number one cause of death by disease for children ages 1 to 14. So that's excluding accidents. And then the hardest thing for us with thinking about when he was going through treatment was that with what's available now, 95% of childhood cancer survivors have significant health-related issues after. So there was talk of him having amputations. There was the likelihood that following chemo and radiation, he would not be able to have children, things like that, 95% of kids that survive cancer live with that. But it only accounts for 4% of federal cancer research dollars. So if you ever see that hashtag, especially coming in September, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, more than 4, childhood cancer only accounts for 4% of federal cancer research dollars.
Why is that?
I am not sure. What makes me crazy is that if you're just like thinking about like, I'm an analytical person, I'm in finance, all that. If you're just thinking about like the useful life of something, you would think that saving a 9-year-old would be a lot more impactful to society versus saving a 99-year-old, and I don't want to value one human life over another, but if we're thinking about kind of what are we working towards, they won't give a liver from a 20-year-old to a 100-year-old person because that person's not going to make good use of the liver because they're not going to be here very long. So it's interesting to me that there's so few federal research dollars for childhood cancer when their useful life and the benefits of saving a child are so high, much less just the emotional aspect of children being sick and things like that. And then the other thing that I think about is kids are really resilient and kids survive cancer a lot more because they don't have a lot of the pre-existing conditions. So if an adult maybe had, lung cancer, but their lungs, they also have like COPD or something like that, kids just don't have the life of acquiring all these other conditions that would make it less survivable. That's just a guess on my part. I'm not sure. But yeah, 4% is just abysmal, honestly.
Yeah. It's tough to think about this side of the coin because it's such a hard fought battle in general. Whether it's cancer or any other disease that you're fighting, it's already taxing enough just surviving that, right? The emotional pain, the physical pain, the family, the friends, it's not easy, right?
Yeah.
But absolutely. Then to think that the federal government's like, all right, well, we'll pitch in 4% of all of our spending in this cancer research to kids. It's like, what?
Yeah. And what's crazy is it impacts families so much differently when a child has cancer than when an adult has cancer. And so like one of the biggest things for my parents is they had to make decisions, life or death decisions for another human. Like it's so much easier when we're making decisions for ourselves. I'm willing to make this sacrifice for me versus, I don't know, am I willing to make this sacrifice for them? They're only 9 and has these crazy, scary side effects. Am I willing to, maybe he might go blind or deaf from chemo, which is, by the way, a very real side effect of chemo. And they have to decide, like, would I rather him be alive and blind, or do we do something less aggressive? And maybe it's not as, doesn't work as well in the cancer, but does it have these side effects? The kind of decision making you're having to do for another human is just insane.
Yeah, I remember when I raised some money for St. Jude's Children's Hospital, it didn't really hit me the impact or the burden of some of the financial responsibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until, recently with the podcast, I've met some people and, my guest, Sheena Garcia, she's from Canada. She defeated cancer and spent about $100 defeating cancer. And
Yeah.
then my guest, Robert Sanchez, defeated cancer, and he literally has negative dollars.
Yep.
He had to spend every single penny to defeat it.
Yeah, it's insane when GoFundMe is your biggest healthcare provider of in America.
I just don't understand the leadership in this country, whether it be Congress or CEOs of these insurance companies or pharmaceutical companies or whatever it may be. How do these leaders just say, you know what? Let's just charge them as much as we can.
Yeah, and it's not even when you're going through treatment. Luckily, my dad had an out-of-pocket max through his job, so they didn't have to make decisions for him based on money. It was, we're going to spend this much this year, then we're going to blow that out in the first week, and then we can do whatever. But also, if Beckett had survived, A, he would likely have needed a hip replacement in his 20s, and B, he would have had a lot of other issues, including fertility issues. So we weren't able, a lot of, which is crazy to me, their children having to have conversations with their parents about banking their sperm and eggs for future children when they're 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah.
Things like that, when they want to then have those children, that's not covered. If he had needed that hip replacement, it likely would have been considered a pre-existing condition. He would have had to pay for a hip replacement in his 20s out of pocket. Like I couldn't afford to do anything. Like if my check engine light came on, like we're riding with this. Like I don't, much less paying out of pocket for a hip replacement. Like that's right. Insane. So yeah, it's not even just going through treatment. It's all the things you have to deal with afterwards.
No, I normally don't go to the doctor, and this is a mistake. I should get, annual checkups at least. So I'm going in for my annual checkup tomorrow, which is probably like 3 or 4 years behind.
It's annual, like annual is the.
Yeah. Well, I'm not very good at reading or comprehending, apparently. But this is what's so, and not to get, distracted from the conversation here, but I had to sign a form that said, you agree to receive treatment even if your insurance doesn't cover it. And I'm like, what the, I'm going in for a physical. Like, what the fuck am I doing here?
Exactly. It's like, no thanks, I'll die. I don't know.
What is wrong with this system? I don't know.
I know. Anyway. It's insane.
So throughout Beckett's battle, I assume that there were a lot of people and a lot of organizations there to support you.
Yeah, absolutely. So a few things that also outside of just parents making decisions are siblings. So my youngest sister was, she was 5 when Beckett was diagnosed. And the next one was 11 when Beckett was, maybe 12 when Beckett was diagnosed. They were still kids. And so siblings during treatment get shuffled around to random caretakers. They don't know who's going to be in their house when they get home. They're eating random families' meals that aren't their mom's cooking, that they don't know when they're going to eat it, when it's going to be dropped off. They don't know if Beckett's going to come home tonight or if he's going to have a fever when he goes in for treatment, and mom and Beckett are going to stay in the hospital. They just don't know what to expect from day to day. Also, like the sick child kind of gets some special treatment, which I'll talk about that when I talk about my organizations. But just outside of the organizations providing things for the family, Beckett got an iPad. Just a church donated an iPad, which he lived on through treatment. He lived on it. Minecraft, and then he also lived on his PlayStation and things like that. And younger siblings, it's hard for them to understand, how come Beckett gets an iPad? How come he doesn't have to go to school? And I remember snapping at my little sister and being like, do you want to trade places with him? He would much rather not have an iPad. What are you talking about? But it's hard for them to understand. So there's lots of organizations out there that support siblings. Churches and things like that will donate presents for Christmas and things like that. But the biggest one that impacted Beckett was, I'm not sure if you've heard of the 501st Legion.
I have not.
They are a volunteer organization that make movie quality, screen quality Star Wars costumes. And they're unbelievable. They have a whole handbook. They have to be exactly the way they are in the movies. The measurements have to be the same, the colors they use, how they fit, everything. And so they will do parades and things, but their biggest thing is they'll visit children in the hospital. And they visited Beckett on that first day. There was a Darth Vader. There was all kinds of other characters. And then the biggest one that I thought was crazy was somebody had built an R2-D2 and operated it with a PlayStation controller. He had programmed it to operate with a PlayStation controller that he just held at his side and operated it with one hand. And it just looked like R2-D2 was like roaming the halls of the hospital.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. It's the 501st Legion, and it's all out of pocket. So these people make their R2-D2s, and my dad, actually, he has a Death Trooper kit, and he's working on one of the big ones that you don't see a ton because they're really labor intensive, is a Chewbacca. So he's building that right now, and he's gone on a couple trips in his Death Trooper outfit. But the other one was Make-A-Wish. They don't just do like you kind of think of it with like terminally ill children, but they also do it for children who just spend a lot of time in the hospital. They have conditions they live with that force them to miss out on a lot of day-to-day life. And Beckett actually passed away the week he was supposed to go on his wish. They were packing to go on his wish, and he passed away before he could go. But those people were amazing. Like, he wanted to go to Hawaii, but the issue is he had to be near a hospital. So they kind of come up with alternatives. He ultimately wanted to swim with dolphins. So they sent him, they had him plan to go somewhere that was close to a hospital where he could also swim with dolphins. The whole family could come, and my sisters could swim with dolphins, all that. So they were fantastic. And then just going back to the federal research dollars, the organization that I support mainly is Sarcoma Foundation of America. And they can be found at curesarcoma.org. And they fund sarcoma research through both just donations to the organization and also through Race to Cure Sarcoma, which is 5Ks that take place all over the country. I think they're in 19 different cities right now. And each race, half the fundraising goes towards a local cancer center to fund sarcoma research locally, and the other half comes back to Sarcoma Foundation, where they fund $50,000 grants to researchers studying various things in sarcoma. So anything from various types of sarcoma, and some of the things even fund sarcoma is actually pretty prevalent in dogs. Not sure why. They're also trying to figure out why, but some of the grants even go towards studying canine cancers, and hopefully learning about that will help gather information about how it impacts humans as well. But yeah, Sarcoma Foundation of America is a big one.
I saw, you just kind of reminded me a little bit here with the dog, and all of these organizations. Obviously, I'll post it online and on social media and everything, everywhere that I can.
Awesome. Thank you.
No, yeah. I mean, there's a million organizations out there that are incredible, that do so much good. Yeah. And even back when I lived in Charlotte, I would try to work with these organizations to kind of connect with corporations to get more help, right?
Yeah, and you can actually if you do Amazon Smile.
Yes, smile.amazon.com. Everybody should be using that.
Yeah, Sarcoma Foundation is on there. So you can set Sarcoma Foundation as if you don't have an organization already, it's super easy to set them as that, and then just go to Smile, like you said, smile.amazon.com, and then purchase like you normally would, and it would benefit Sarcoma Foundation.
I don't know if they have the app activated with that.
I think Brandon, my husband, said that he just now saw that he could do Amazon Smile on the app.
Okay.
He has an Android, so I don't know if that makes a difference. He's too good for an iPhone, but.
Oh God, it's either iPhone or nothing. Come on.
Mm-hmm. And the green text just.
Every time. Makes me want to throw up. No, but before I got distracted there, what I was gonna say is, I saw a news article maybe 2 weeks ago, where one of the baby food companies is getting sued or getting in trouble because there was large amounts of lead and some sort of like toxic
really
stuff. And literally the brand is designed as like all natural, all good, like all
they call that greenwashing now.
And it's just like, are you kidding me? And like what? Like,
I know.
I can only imagine that if that's in that baby food being given to humans, what is in dog food?
Oh, 1,000%. Oh,
Right?
it makes sense. Like what they put in there is just filler and crap. And yeah, it's crazy.
And
Which might be why dogs get cancer so crazy frequently.
no, yeah. And I just kind of think about, and I've been on a bad streak on my diet lately, but I excuse it as I need the calories. I don't know. I've just been tired a lot. So I'm just like, all right, maybe I need
Well,
more calories.
feelings need calories too. So
Yeah. So I've just kind of been binging a little bit, but then every time I eat it, it's like, man, how heavily processed was some of this food, right?
oh yeah.
How many pieces of metal, how many pieces of rubber did it hit before it got put into its nice little clean package or whatever?
Oh yeah. I think about that all the time. So like my son's eating solids now, and I joke like he eats like a rich lady in California, with the like fresh produce and whatever else, everything. And then me and Brandon eat like probably a rat that lives in the New York subway eats like. But he's eating like, organic whatever. And
Yep.
here we are eating trash.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle, to be honest.
Yeah, it really is. My grandma always said that if you eat it while you're standing up, it doesn't stick. Like that's how gravity helps you. So, whatever that's worth.
Well, I'll make sure and stand up every time I eat this junk food.
Yeah.
No, but it's I cannot imagine the stress and the pressure and the pain that you and your family went through for what was it, around a year?
Yeah, 9 months is how long he had it, just almost to the day. So yeah, it's crazy, and you just don't know till you're in it that what you'll need and things like that. So I I try not to give advice to people. So I'll do it now because you don't need my advice, but I
Give
try
all the advice you want.
I try not to be like, oh, you're going through stuff. Hold on, get out a pad of paper and let me just tell you what you need to do and whatever. But some of the biggest things I say are like, I just kept repeating to myself, like, it's nothing until it's something. Like, it's nothing until it's something. Because you'll go down that rabbit hole. And the worst thing that some people, it depends on who you are. But for me and my dad, the worst thing we could have done is Google it. We did not Google, and no one should Google unless you can handle seeing the worst case scenario, finding out whatever the worst possible outcome is. If you feel like you can handle that, then Google away. Brandon and Beckett's mom Googled all the time. For Brandon, it was helpful. I don't know how helpful it was for Beckett's mom, but for me, I didn't Google it until I found out he was terminal. And it was too late and didn't matter what I found out. I already knew the outcome. But yeah, just don't Google unless you can handle it. And then the other things were to just don't wait on any of the good stuff. Like, don't assume you're going to have more time. So once we found out he was terminal, my dad and my stepmom planned a trip to Disney. Like, he needs to go to Disney. We'll take him to Disney. And then Brandon and I were engaged, and we were supposed to be married October of 2017. And my dad just told me, like, he won't be there. Like, if you wait till October, he won't be there. I think you need to do it after Disney. So we moved our wedding up 7 months, and we were married, and he passed away 15 days after that. Wow. So we moved. He was there, and that was his last good weekend. Like, feeling great. He was tearing it up on the dance floor. You would not have known. Like, if he wasn't bald, you wouldn't have known he was sick. And he cried my whole way walking down the aisle, and he just was in it to win it. Loved the whole day. I'm so glad we did it. And we planned, I didn't do anything. I actually called, Eliza from the fraternity, who just is a get it doneer. And I called her and my cousin and Georgia, also from the fraternity. And I said, I need to get married in 2.5 weeks, and I can't do it. I can't plan this. Like, we're going to get married at the courthouse if nothing happens. And the three of them planned my entire wedding for me in 2.5 weeks. They got me, I had to do the church, but they did everything else. We had an amazing reception at a brewery. They were able to get a limo. They got caterers, cake, like they did at flowers. They did every single thing. They invited all the guests. They did the invites. My friend Josie designed the invites, and they just spun a wedding out of nothing in 2.5 weeks. And that's so amazing. Like, that's my advice for outsiders, is just don't ask what you can do for the family that's going through it. Like, just do something. Like, the grass needs to be cut. Don't ask if you want them. Like, do you want me to cut your grass? Like, just cut their grass. You know that it needs to be cut. Just do it. So things like that. And I will absolutely, and I tell them all the time, like, I hope I never have to return the favor, but if you ever need me to, I will, but I hope it never comes up.
Right.
But yeah, they ended my entire wedding in 2.5 weeks.
Well, I think, that's pretty solid advice.
Yeah.
I know, especially this day and age, people want to know every single little thing, and they, just like the vaccine, right? All of a sudden, everybody's a doctor.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh no, you got to take this vaccine because this one, blah, 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 and this one. And it's like, or you could just go get a vaccine, like.
Yeah. You wouldn't believe the crazy things people say when you or someone you know is going through cancer, where it's like, no, I'm not going to try your at-home remedy. Like, I'm just going to do what the doctor says.
Right.
But thanks. But also, like, you didn't help just now when you offered this, like, crazy at-home remedy of something that I put in my socks and then go to bed with this, whatever it is on my socks. Like, just come over, mow the grass. Like, bring over a casserole, mow the grass. Advice is not help. It's very different.
Right. No, I completely agree. And also try to, in tough times like that, I do think there's value in pretending like life is okay, like not having to ask you, are you okay, every 5 minutes, and saying, hey, you know what, let's go out and have a drink, let's just have one night to just kind of relax.
Absolutely. I mean, we all had people say, like, do you want to talk about it? And you could just say no, and they'd be like, all right. And then we would talk about literally anything else. And the thing that I think about whenever it comes up with me for other people is they talk about, like, the circles of grief, where the person who's most impacted, so in this case, my brother Beckett, is in the center, and everybody else is in, like, rings out. So, like, we were in the next ring, and then, like, our friends were in the ring out from that, like a target. And comfort is the only thing that can go in towards the center. And then you do all your dumping and complaining out. So you complain to the person that's closer to it than you are. You just bring comfort to the people who are closer, and then you dump out to your friends and your coworkers. You don't dump into the people who are in it.
Man, is that why everyone that I know always complains to me? What's going on here?
Yeah, you're on the outside. You're just on the outside of all these things.
I'm always on the outside.
Good. You don't want to be at the center. That's not a good place.
No, that's for sure. Yeah. No, and then also, not waiting too long for the good times, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. And then taking photos, not at the expense of, like, absorbing memories. You don't want to be the person that, like, films fireworks. Like, I never understand. You just, like, look at them. But taking lots of photos, especially, like, candid photos of the person and people they care about. So, like, for example, my dad, if he was, like, building a Lego set with Beckett, taking a photo of them building Legos together would be a lot more impactful than, like, all right, you guys stand up against this wall and smile at me. Like, he would cherish that Lego photo a lot more than the, like, stand and smiles. So try and capture as much as you can, especially with of your person or the person who's in it with others that they care about.
1,000% agree. I get yelled at all the time because I take those candid photos, but I mean, that moment's never going to happen again, right?
Exactly. And it's so much, like, you'd so much rather have a documentation of, like, a moment you cared about with that person than just, like, yep, we stood next to each other and smiled at the thing,
Yeah, I've actually gotten yelled at before because I didn't, always, like, pose for pictures and stuff. Like, if somebody tells me, hey, pose for a picture, yeah, I'll pose for it. But that was never, like, my go-to, right? I'd rather just kind of capture the moment and just kind of run with it.
Exactly. Yeah. 1,000%.
So, we've talked a lot about, the ugliness and the people that helped and the effects of everything. Do you want to talk a little bit about Beckett himself, who he was?
Yeah, I'd love to. So that's one thing. Yeah, like people who've lost someone, especially Beckett, like it was 9 months out of a 9-year life, like people want to be able to talk about their loved ones and the good things about who they were without it being like, oh, the one who died. So yeah, Beckett was just the sweetest guy. He's always been the sweetest kid. He was very empathetic, always cared about others. He was also hilarious. He did a really great and hilarious Trump impression. We had these like little tiny like toy hands, and he would like jump his hands and hold the hands in the sleeves and joke about how Trump had tiny hands, that whole thing.
That's funny.
Yeah, he also loved pugs like the dog. And he loved like obviously poop and fart jokes. And then the thought was the funniest is he had a PlayStation when he was sick, and he would play. I don't know if you've ever heard of Goat Simulator.
I have not.
It's like a video game where you're a goat and you're just like kind of in the world like a Sims, but you're a goat, and you could do like whatever with your goat, ride roller coasters or whatever as the goat. But there's like a thing you could do that would make the goat like ragdoll, or it was just limp. And he used to like to put the goat on a roller coaster and make it go limp, so its head is just like flying, like flopping all around the little car, the roller coaster.
What?
Yeah, it was just so stupid, but so funny.
That sounds hilarious, but
it was so funny. I don't know why it was so funny, but just watching this goat like flop around is too much. But yeah, he was super empathetic. Even when he was in the hospital, Brandon twisted his ankle, and Beckett would ask like, how's Brandon's foot doing? Like, is it better? Is it still hurting? When he's literally sitting in a hospital asking about how someone else is doing. And then the thing that gets me is like, Beckett just loved babies, always wanted to hold them. Once his friends left the room and it was like no one was looking, he'd be like, can I hold your baby? And he'd always wanted to hold babies and all that, which does make me a little sad with my son that he would have been obsessed. Like he would have freaked out at Vincent and wanted to hold him and been obsessed with him. So it does make me a little sad, but I did give Vincent Beckett's middle name. So they share a middle name.
Nice.
Yeah, which is really nice. But yeah, Beckett was just a sweet, cuddly, goofy little guy, and cared a lot about everyone. He would remember names and things like that, and what was going on with that person, and everything. And he just loved everybody so much. So.
Yeah, it's tough to think that. I mean, just the way you described him, it's like, all right, cool. So he's better than me.
He's better than me too. Don't worry.
And it's like, damn. And there.
I know. It's hard to think like, what would he have done? Like, how would he have existed
right.
on the planet? Do
you have like a favorite memory or two from before he was sick?
Yeah, I have. Some of them are just kind of funny, like with the siblings and all that. But one of them was, this is more Tinker, but the oldest sister. But one time they were in like a little Barbie Jeep, and Tinker was driving and Beckett's in the passenger seat. And next thing you know, Beckett's on the ground. And what happened? And Tinker had stiff-armed him completely out of the Barbie Jeep while it was moving. And we're like, Tinker, why did you do that? Like, we're like holding Beckett. And she was like, he was being a screamy head. And then he just, like, that was good enough. He was being a screamy head. But
it was like he became that limp goat.
And just yeah, exactly. He was like the limp goat flying. It's like if the goat wasn't buckled in. But yeah, he was always just the sweetest little guy. Always wanted to cuddle. I have a really cute picture of me like reading him reading him and Tinker a story, and he was just dead asleep in my arms, and things like that. That's why photos are so important, and you don't know till it's too late.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he was just so funny. There was one time where we went to the zoo. It was like kind of one of Brandon's first times, and he loved Brandon. Oh my God, he was so obsessed with Brandon. Whenever me and Brandon got engaged and we called to say like we were engaged, Beckett's like, I'm getting a brother. Like, excited. And so before Beckett was sick, we'd gone to the zoo, and it was like Brandon's first outing. And Brandon's an only child, like 3 kids are a lot. So we went to the zoo, and Beckett's just being so whiny. It was so annoying. He was like complaining that his shirt was itching him. He was like, like whimpering, holding his shirt away from him. Like, Beckett, like, there are people out there who have like 4th-degree burns all over their bodies. Like, that's a shirt. Like, let it go. And he was being so annoying. He finally picked it up and whatever. And then we go home. We're in the car on the way. And I see Brandon's riding like in the middle of the 3rd row with Tinker on one side, Beckett on the other. I'm in the front with my dad. And Brandon's just like rolling his eyes, and he's not saying anything, but I can tell he's getting annoyed. And then we get home, and Beckett had just been sneakily like licking Brandon's arm like the whole way home.
What?
And Brandon didn't want to upset him and tell him to stop doing it, but he was just like casually, just occasionally giving him a little lick on his arm. And we don't know why. And Beckett didn't like, we're like, why were you licking his arm? He's like, I don't know. And
that's amazing.
Upset him. So he's just sitting there for like a 30-minute car ride with like a 7-year-old licking his arm every now and then.
Oh God.
Oh my God. Kids do the weirdest stuff. Oh
yeah. Well, I mean, you've got one of your own, so.
I know. We'll see. He already does some weird stuff. Yeah. We'll see how much he takes after.
Before I let you go, do you want to give me a reminder of the upcoming event in Atlanta?
Yeah. So the Race to Cure Sarcoma Atlanta is on June 12th. And you can find the information about it at curesarcoma.org. The Nashville race is either in October or November. I'm not sure if we've picked a date yet, but there's races all over the country: Louisville, Tampa, Chicago. I think there's one in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong. But they're definitely all over the country. And so, yeah, just a fun little 5K. At the Atlanta and Nashville races, we do a really nice community connection ceremony where everyone, like when you sign up for the race, you talk about your connection to sarcoma, and you get a sticker that says your connection. So for example, my sticker is green and it says I lost a loved one. It could either be patient, you're a medical provider, you're a survivor, you're a caretaker of someone with sarcoma, things like that. And we do a community connection ceremony at the races where we ask each person, like in each group, raise your hand if you're a part of this group. And then the last group is kind of sarcoma supporters. It's kind of the everyone else. And at the end, you kind of see everyone's raising their hand and they're all there in support of sarcoma. It's, we all kind of ended up there through different paths. And it's especially good to kind of connect with, oh, you lost a loved one to sarcoma. Like mine was my brother. His name was Beckett. Oh, mine was my dad. His name was whatever. And so it's nice to kind of connect there as well. And the Atlanta race, there's the closest one is Nashville. So we had people from, Alabama, Mississippi, other surrounding states kind of join us in the Atlanta race. So it was really nice to kind of connect with people from other states and things like that. So yeah, curesarcoma.org for information on those races.
Awesome. I'll make sure and post it on the social media. And I really appreciate you coming on and kind of just spreading this type of this message.
Thanks. Yeah, I it's kind of hard to end on a positive note, but I feel like there's been some outcomes that weren't just like exclusively terrible. And I think the 3 that I kind of thought of were, empathy. You don't really know what kind of day someone's having. And I remember when I found out that it was cancer, I was going home from work and I lived in downtown Nashville at the time. So there was just like bachelorette parties with like, woo, like going down the street on a tractor or whatever. And I was like, don't you know what's happening? Like, how can you be having a good day? Like a little boy has, in my head, obviously it's crazy. Right. Just kind of having that empathy. And then also just being present, don't record the fireworks show on your phone, like just watch it with your eyeballs and be present. And then also just like I'm trying to do now, just share your story, and it makes others that are going through something similar feel less lonely. I have connected with several people who have lost siblings, either cancer or suicide or others. We're in kind of a group no one wants to be a part of, but we're here anyway. And so just sharing your story, being open about what you've gone through, and it'll make other people feel like they're not alone in whatever they're going through. And don't be afraid to kind of open up to whoever has ears and wants to hear what's going on. I will tell them anything they want to know about what my brother, me, and my family went through.
Yeah, couldn't have said it any better than you. I mean, you shared your story, and it's never easy to kind of talk about this type of stuff, but it's important. It's important. And so again,
absolutely,
I really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, I'll direct everybody to the website, and hopefully the story gets heard.
Great. Thanks so much, Pablo, for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for coming on, and thanks for reaching out.
Thanks.
I will talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.